Hello there. Welcome, everybody. It's Cheryl Marlene here tonight. And I thought I had gotten this worked out, and it looks like um, somehow this isn't doing what I thought I wanted it to do. Um, huh. Well, it's going to work. One way or the other, it's going to work. So, anyway, welcome. Let's see. Um, there we go. Okay. Um, okay, I think I've got this. It'll work. If you can hear me. um, Want to welcome everybody tonight. This is Akashic Records Insight. What I'm going to be doing is opening up the Akashic Records and asking questions. Hey, Nikki, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining. So if you have a question that you'd like me to answer within the records, if you would please, you can type it into chat, and I will answer. I will answer for you that way. So let me go ahead and get the records open because I haven't done that yet. So while I open the records, you can just think about what you want to know and if there's anything you want to let go, and we can go from there. So I think I'm going to open the records of the Hall of Ancient Wisdom, which is an aspect of the Akashic Records I like to work with. It's somewhat like opening the records of the records, which I always think is a fun thing to do. So let me do that here. Okay. So I'm going to be quiet for a few moments, then I'm going to say a blessing out loud, then I'll be quiet a moment more, and then I'll say the records are open, and then that's when we'll start with whatever questions anybody has. So let's see. Let me just double check one thing here. Okay. All right. So all righty. My center with your center, our center with all centers, our center is the one center. I enter the realm of the masters, teachers, and loved ones at the Hall of Ancient Wisdom and match our hearts and minds with theirs. Let us find through joy and wisdom the ability to open the universe and ourselves to greater possibility and deeper love. Eternal Source, fill our hearts with clarity and sacred power, and show us the place of balance between us and the Hall of Ancient Wisdom. Hear us now as we become one with the whole, and when we are complete, release us in love and admiration, keeping our energy raised. All right, the records are open. So, if anybody has questions, they can put it in chat there, and I will be happy to answer pretty much anything you want to ask. What I thought I would do tonight is start, though, with a question, which is sort of more of a general idea about whether, let's see, if they have any messages for us in terms of what's going on for us within the world, what's happening. Let's see. So let me kind of tune in here and see what I get. So what they would like for us to understand or know or think about is that we're all very well aware of the shift and change that's happening on the planet. It is showing itself in a variety of different ways, and one of the ways that it's showing is how close we all are becoming to what they would call the unknown. There's ways in which in our lives we have kind of been able to, I don't know, shield ourselves from this. It's the thing that they believe has really been scraped away from us especially from the pandemic, is this idea that, that we know that we um, don't have, like if we get to a certain body of knowledge, like say within a spiritual tradition or a religious tradition, then we know, and we don't really have to worry so much about the unknown. But that's one of the things that happened, especially like they said with the pandemic, is that it scraped away that, sort of that sense of certainty, or that sense of assurance um, that we can have sometimes, that we know, that we know what, um, we know how this is all going to go. And the reality is that we don't. And so we're all moving closer to learning to be comfortable with the unknown, learning to be comfortable with, um, the fact that things are uncertain, and that we're moving away from the fear of the unknown, the fear of, like, say, the abyss, the fear of chaos, the fear of of that which is held to be beyond our understanding and beyond our ability, unless we become special in some way. Either we get the special hidden knowledge, or we do the special things that puts us in a particular group of people. Um, Instead, what we're doing is we're moving closer to the fact that there's actually joy in connecting with the unknown, that there is, um, an amazing depth that's available when you lose that fear of the unknown. So, a whole lot of what's happening on the planet right now is pushing people right up against the edge of the unknown, right up against that sense of, oh my God, like if I take another step, I'm gonna fall off the cliff. I'm gonna, end up in some sort of chaotic mess that I'm never gonna get myself out of. And um, and instead, we're stepping up to that edge and learning a level of trust in ourselves that is, I mean, it's not that it's unprecedented, because that's not true, but it's becoming more and more a part of the conscious process of humanity, is to refuse the the worry and the concern that is propagated by fear, and in essence, like, question the premise of it. Is this really something that I need to be terrified of, or is that what's unknown here filled with opportunity and potential, that when I let go of, let's say, that reaction against, um, that when I let go of that reaction, when I let go of letting the fear drive and control how I look at my life, and I take that choice into my hands, and I say, um, and instead I say, I look at fear, I look at the unknown as a source of support and a source of revelation that's available to me when I am not, um, always thinking of life in, like, negative terms, in something that I have to protect myself from. Um, it's that I'm moving more and more into this sense of deep connection, and and deeper, um, joy of connection, the experience of connection, so that what we think of as the unknown and the unknowable becomes part of our lives in a way that, um, reinforces and supports that ability to be, um, to be excited about living, to be able to look at it and say, wow, this is what I've been wanting to get to. This is what I've been wanting to experience. This, when I let go of that fear and I begin to feel the deep connection I have with everything, with all that is, with the transcendent, what I find in that is the ability to feel safe and to feel like I can thrive. And even if times are tough, and even if I feel despair, I don't let that take me down a deep road of fear. Rather, I acknowledge my emotion, I acknowledge my feeling, I acknowledge the sense I have, and I use that to empower and deepen my sense of connection to the world. Um, we believe that that's what is before humanity, is this, I mean, you could call it a pivot point, or you can say that it's an inflection point, or you can say we're at a crossroads, or any of that kind of idea of being at a place where the opportunity is shift and change, and being able to have that sense of shifting into a deeper sense of of the fact that humanity is not limited, that humanity has incredible capacity for connection, and that buying into fear is mostly what separates us from that ability to feel, the depths that we are all capable of. So that's the message that they would like to pass on tonight. Or yeah, tonight. I'm at tonight. um, so if anybody has a question that they would like to ask, they can ask anything about the Akashic Records, about current events, about the universal mysteries, anything, energy, whatever you want to ask about. Yeah, so I can see that Nikki's got a question here for us. Oh, I love that question, Nikki. So she's asking a question about her training in the Akashic Records, especially opening for other, and if there's anything that she could focus on or benefit from the student perspective. So just for those people who might not, who are tuned in and don't know this, when I talk about open the Akashic Records for other doesn't mean just other people. It means other flows of energy that are not you. So it's learning how to work with all kinds of human and non-human energy. And so for you specifically, but also for just about any student in general, the thing that they think that would be really, really helpful is to do things, is to really, it's almost like make a list of all the kinds of non-human energy flows of energy that you can think of that you're interested in, and go down that list and try opening the records of all of that, right? Like if there's a river near you that you're interested in, or a mountain, or if you own a business, or you own a house, or even if you rent a house, because you can do it as a renter, go into your own records and ask how, if you're not sure how to open the records of these different things, but the but open them. And so, I mean, it's basically saying that what you want to do is get as much practice as you can working with non-human energy, because that really, I mean, opening for people is really important too, but the the more experience you have with non-human energy and how that works and how that feels and how you connect with it, and that opening the records of a river feels like this and opening the records of a mountain feels like this, you're really deepening that experience, and you're opening the door to to a level of experience within the Akashic records that a whole lot of people really never get to, either because they don't know that they can do that, or because like they stop someplace along the way. But it's it's partly what I call the difference between the named path and the unnamed path. The named path is opening the Akashic records, or I mean, it's working with anything really, where you name what you're working with, right? So, like, if you want to experience Reiki within the Akashic records, that's a named path. Reiki is a named path. Homeopathy, acupuncture, um, all the various kinds of energy healing that is out there. All of those are named paths, and there's nothing wrong with the named paths. It's just that the thing that's interesting then about an unnamed path is that you're learning there to allow the records to bring to you what is what is necessary, which means that it's reaching out through the entirety of all that is, which we by definition don't know. We can't name it all. And so then working in an unnamed path allows the records to bring to you something that you might not have thought about, or something you don't know about. And by having a lot of different experience with different aspects of non-human energy, what happens is that it gives you all this different kinds of experience of how, when you work in different aspects of the records, how that's all different. And that opens you up to being able to kind of, well, to receive, like, what I would call through an unnamed path, right? You become that, you become capable of feeling comfortable with that because you have that depth of experience. So really, pretty much anything as a student you can do to deepen your experience, extend your experience, that's the thing to do. Which is, I mean, to put a little plug in here for me, that's how I've created the Akashic Records intensive training program that I run. I mean, yes, I help you learn how to open the Akashic records for yourself and for other, but the depth of that experience is really about just what they talked about, is how can you develop that deeper road in the Akashic records and move into the profound parts of it, which is not really about skill as much as it's about your curiosity, your willingness to entertain what you don't know, so that you can learn about the difference between, say, the named paths and the unnamed paths. So I hope that is helpful there for you. Okay, so let's go to the next question. It looks like Jacqueline's got one. She's asking, what is mindfulness, and can you explain how we work on this? That's a great question. I love this kind of question in the records. Oh, cool. And so I so the way they want to answer this is an interesting way to think about mindfulness. Whenever someone says something to you, or you hear something or whatever, you basically have, in talking about it in a contrasty kind of way, you essentially have two ways that you can interact with what you hear. One is that you react. And essentially, in reaction, you hear somebody say, and you start responding, you start saying things or even thinking things without giving it a whole lot of thought, right? It's just like, oh, that makes me mad, or oh my God, I'm so excited, or whatever. It doesn't have to necessarily be negative. But the point is that you are saying something before you think about what you're saying. Whereas in contrast to that is responding. And responding means that you, between hearing something and or even thinking something, you there's a little gap, right? There's a pause, and you stop and you think and you consider. You may not think and consider for very long because it's not about the length of it, but it's about how you bring your awareness into how you respond. So that then in relationship to mindfulness, reaction is not mindful. Reaction is mindless, right? Like your mind, your heart, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, all the way that you know, all the way that you process knowing, it isn't consciously brought into your response. And whereas mindfulness, especially in relationship to that idea of response, is that you have brought your conscious awareness into how you respond, so that it gets you this interesting um, contrast to understand that mindfulness is that ability within us to be consciously aware of what we're aware of, if you will. And it allows us um, to be conscious then about how we choose to respond. So that mindfulness is taking in the awareness of what's going on, like say in the environment around you. You're consciously aware of it, you're processing it, you're thinking about it, you may be having feelings come up and you're aware of those feelings, you may be sensing things and you're aware of those sensations, and all of it's coming together to help you to be connected and aware of what I would call what is, in meaning whatever it is in your environment. um, and um, and one of the most interesting parts of being mindful is that it means that you are connected with your ability to choose for yourself. Reaction, when you're mindless or out of your mind, that I didn't mean it that way. Well, like when you're not connected into your awareness, then you're often leaving the power of who you are behind, and you're definitely left your ability to choose for you about how you engage with the world. You're leaving that behind. So mindfulness is that ability to be aware of who you are, your conscious awareness in the moment, how you're connected, what's going on, what's happening. You're paying attention, and in in a in meditation, for example, or just quiet reflection, um, you are using that awareness in like say within the stillness of who you are, within the pause within who you are, right? So reaction just jumps right past that, whereas mindfulness allows you to really kind of come into that sense of what of your ability to choose for yourself in the moment. and not ignore that or see that it's not possible. You're able to feel that connection with you and be mindful of it, um, of what you're doing. Like I used to, they want me to share this, like, um, a while back, when I was doing a whole lot of hiking, I still do it, but is to have a mindful hike, meaning we're going to go out on the trail and we're going to, walk and hike and do our thing, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time chit chatting. And we're just going to focus our awareness on our experience moving down the trail, paying attention to how we feel, how are we breathing, are we taking deep breaths, do we feel the wind, do we notice that tree there, do we see that boulder there, right? Like we're taking in through our conscious awareness everything that's about around us in our environment, instead of just sort of more like blinders on, just running down the trail, not paying any attention to what's going on around us in the forest or along the mountain or whatever. So mindfulness then is that ability to bring yourself into clear conscious awareness of you and your experience in the moment. So that the way to work on that is to do things where you say, okay, I'm just going to be mindful of this, right? So, I mean, you could do that with just about anything. I mean, hiking, walking, that's a really good thing because physically your body is like somewhat distracted by like actually getting you to walk, so that you can focus your mind and your heart on what your experience is. But I mean, you can watch TV and be mindful, in my opinion, because you can bring conscious awareness to your experience there, and like it almost ends up being a little bit of a fly on the wall kind of experience, watching yourself. Oh, look, that made me laugh, or I really cringed when that happened. Right? You're aware of yourself. You're being, to use the word, you're being mindful of your experience. Um, so I hope that helps. All right, next question. Oh, we got a lot of questions here. This is awesome. Okay, so what are the biggest obstacles to trusting myself? How can I get out of my own way? Oh, this is a great question. So this is a question about trust and getting beyond the obstacles to trusting yourself. So, so the way they want to respond to that right now is to say this. There are so how we trust ourselves is very much a product, like a whole lot of things in our lives is a product of like our childhood, right? Like our experience in life, maybe in a more general way, is what makes trust either easy or difficult, or there's moments where you can trust and there's moments where you can't trust. So um, so so the biggest obstacle. Well, this is interesting. The biggest obstacle, the way they want to answer this question for you, because it feels like they're going to give you a direct personal response here. Um, the biggest obstacle to trusting yourself, um, is being told, it feels like being told as a young child that you can't trust what you don't know. And there's an inherent conflict in that idea. I mean, part of it, it's ambiguous, but there's an inherent conflict in that, because the ability to trust means that somewhere in there, there's going to be something you don't know. And if you're working with the belief that you can only trust what you know, then pretty much there's going to be a whole lot of things you can't ever trust, or moments that you can't trust because you don't know for sure. And it feels like that got wrapped up then into a sense of like worthiness, right? Like you could only be considered a good person or a worthy person if you trusted yourself. So you're now two steps away from your ability to trust yourself. One, you got a belief that basically says that you can't trust yourself unless you know. And you know there's all kinds of times when you don't really know 100%. And so then that's because there's a lack essentially of trust, then it steps you away into not feeling worthy, because you have to, in order to be a worthy person, that's the next part of the belief. To be a worthy person, you have to trust, right? So you got a nice little, God, that's not a, like that's a menage a trois, right? Like that's a three different things mixed up all together. And, taking care of one doesn't necessarily take care of the other. So what do you do? Well, first, it's just kind of helpful to know about this. The second is to I see why we talked about the unknown to begin with. It's basically to replace, if you can begin to replace your sense of the unknown with a comfort level with the unknown, then you can essentially, what you're doing there is doing an end run around the belief that you have to know in order to trust, right? Because what you're doing is what you're doing there is saying, because I'm comfortable with the unknown, I know that I will be okay. So now you know, right? And now what you're saying is, yes, you don't necessarily know the unknown, but the belief is that you have to know in order to trust. So you begin by saying, I know that I'm okay there, that the unknown is there, and somehow I know that I can make it through life even though the unknown exists. And that gives you the foundation basically to start saying, so it's okay if I trust myself. It's okay if I don't know everything, because that's not what's necessary to trust. And starting down that road then unhooks the other one, which is you have to trust in order to be considered worthy. So now you are basically like redefining where trust happens, right? So it's not, so trust is gone from being more of an externalized experience, and it's becoming more an internalized experience. And in that internalized experience, you can trust yourself, because you're not demanding 100% certainty in order to do that. I hope that makes sense. That it's an interesting little, you know, sticky wicket. Um, so sit with that and see how that does for you, because that's to get to your second part of your question, how do I get out of my own way? That's how you get out of your own way, is you undo those two beliefs that have basically tripped you up so that it almost is impossible probably to feel like you can trust anything or anybody or any situation or whatever. Um, so think about that, and oh, good, it made some sense. Cool, I'm glad to hear that. It's a really interesting concept of trust. So I appreciate you asking the question. Um, so all right, so we'll go to the next question. Um, um, what is this feeling of being overwhelmed or feeling of limbo, being in the middle of things, not the beginning or end? Is that just me? Um, I joined a little late, so I might have missed it. Okay, so um, so partly what they would say is that, see, this makes me crazy, but anyway, part of what part of what this is an answer to is, yeah, we actually did talk a little bit at the beginning about this, but it's going to be an interesting kind of deeper dive into this. So this is a good thing. So um, yes, yes, life for humanity is changing. Yes, things are different. Yes, things are probably going to be even more different as we go along. um, Part of it is because a whole lot of things that we have taken for granted and thought were, sort of like, probably were defined as like maybe absolute truth, for example, are shifting, which isn't kind of the general idea about absolute truth, right? That absolute truth stays absolute. Um, and so it means that because there's things that we've taken for granted and because those things are changing, it means that um, it gives a sense of to a lot of people that they've begun but they haven't finished, which is what they would think it is happening here that you're talking about, is so that, yeah, it is in a lot of ways about being in the middle, but it's because it's also because we're part of the shift is to move away from this idea that we're going to get someplace and move much more into the idea of, life is a journey and it's not about the destination, right? It's that kind of metaphor. And so in a certain sense, it's like you're always on the journey, right? Like there's a lot that happens where, the idea is, like if I study this and I learn this, then I finish, and I've taken care of everything and now my journey is done. This is very much the idea that the journey is never over, that there's always something to learn, that there's always something to explore that's beyond what you know right now, definitely beyond what you know yesterday. And so it's in some respects it's about learning to be comfortable with that continuation, so that it's you may have an idea of like what your next step is or your next couple of steps and where that's going to take you, but you don't stop that. There's I hate to say it, but the journey is never done. You're always in this amazing process. And a lot of ideas in the spiritual communities and religious communities and what have you has been that there's a reason why you come, and part of that reason is to take care of whatever bad things happened in another life, so that you can get to a place where you have fulfilled. Well, I mean, part of it would be to say you've fulfilled the contracts, you've taken care of karma, you've done all of that, so you don't have to come back. And um, the records would say that's not true, and it's also disappointing, because this is where it all happens. This is where we learn. This is where the world expands, the universe expands, all that is expands, because of our ability to come here and be the creative beings that we are. And so in that respect, you don't get it done. And now that things are, like the motion of all of this is moving closer and closer into our conscious awareness, then it really can reinforce this idea that, we're neither at the beginning nor the end. We're in the process. We're on the journey. We're walking the path, like whatever metaphor you want to use there. It's no longer you have to push really hard and get to that place that's 10 miles down the road, or whatever definition of destination you want to come up with. Um, so um, um, that yeah, that's how they would respond to that. Um, okay, and so the question continues. Um, um, so okay, so then there's the question about, like becoming, when you become connected to to the process of your journey, and you become connected to the passion that you feel for your life, and you feel yourself, from that process, empowering yourself. You feel the power within you. It's not uncommon for people to think that you are, as the questionnaire, or the querient is asking or stating, about being very strong-minded, or opinionated. Um, and it, it's a matter of, it's about how you shift your relationship to the unknown, and how, see, if you're afraid of the unknown, right? Like if you're wrapped up in the fear of the unknown, then um, then you're wanting to get to a certain level of certainty that's in alignment with whatever external authority you like and follow. And so that the certainty, you can feel certainty within you, because whoever your authority is certain. And so when you are moving into that place of your power within, and feeling confident about yourself, and feeling that you're a worthy human being, and all of those kinds of things, then what's happening is your sense of authority is becoming internal. It's an internal experience. You don't need to go out and find somebody out there who's going to be your authority. You find your authority within you. And so for someone who has external authority, that's going to make them think that you are too strong-minded and opinionated, um, because the certainty is being reflected from within you, instead of being um, or it's not, it's being generated from within you rather than the authority being reflected at you from outside. Um, and so within the history of humanity, especially in the last, let's say, 3,000 years or so, um, um, we have external authority is for the most part male, and and that which is feminine has been um, shunted off into the category of not trustworthy, and certainly not something that anyone could take for a whole lot of certainty, um, as compared to external male authority. Um, and so, with the shift and the change that's happening right now, which they would define as essentially an integrate, what we're moving from is a separation of the mind and the body from the heart and the soul, and we're moving into an integration of body, mind, heart, and soul, right? We're integrating the physical and the spiritual. Then initially it may look like we're elevating that which is feminine to be better than that which is masculine. But really what they think is happening is that is that the feminine is claiming its rightful place within the authority, within personal authority. So it's not coming in as external authority, right? Which is where you would get the sense that the feminine is rising above the masculine, because that's how everything's been perceived, is through the notion of external authority. But what's really happening because of this integration between body, mind, heart, and soul, the physical and the spiritual, is that it means that in terms of masculine and feminine, neither one is better or worse than the other. When coming together within that integration, it means that 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 it's all being connected within, and you're finding authority within you. So so that means that for a lot of folks with that have the predominantly masculine energy, they're finding that they have more within them, they have feminine energy within them, and vice versa. For mostly feminine energy is finding masculine energy, and it's working together. And then partly also what's happening is, especially when we start talking about gender, is that this integration between physical and spiritual is opening the door to what the records would call fluidity, meaning things that we have always seen as black and white or good and bad, were that strict border between it is softening. It's becoming more fluid. And so it's so that, especially as you are experiencing truth within yourself, and like, say, experiencing truth of both your feminine and your masculine energy, because everybody's got both, you're understanding that it's about allowing that to express within you however you feel like you'd like it to express within you. um, and that's why there are people on the planet now that don't, like, either they're non-binary, or they feel like they feel more towards one than the other, and or they feel a combination of both within, or like, however, whatever words you want to use to describe all of that. Basically, the records would say that that is the fluidity that we will be experiencing more and more as we move forward into this experience of our integrated selves, physically and spiritually. And so it's not just gender that's going to start showing up on, like another place that'll show up in our lives is our ability to be aware of and connect with multiple dimensions, right? Like that's part of the reason why there's this rise in interest and ability in the Akashic Records, for example, because the Akashic Records essentially are a particular dimension of energy within divine consciousness that is capable of allowing direct connection with human consciousness. So that kind of interaction is something that's going to just become more and more prevalent. And even things like out-of-body experiences or astral travel or timeline jumping or all of that kind of stuff is a combination of the influence of fluidity energetically with that fluid interaction with different dimensions of energy. So that's what they have to say to you on that one right now. That's an interesting thing because there's a lot there that we have in store for us that is going, there's doors opening now. I mean, they've been opening for a while, but it's like more and more doors every day, in a sense, are opening to us, you know, allowing us to look at the world and understand ourselves from, you know, these amazing points of view, right? Like, and it's happening within a time in which we all feel like greatly challenged, and probably a whole lot of us feel really, really, really afraid. But it's because we've stepped right up to the edge of what of the shift and change and the opportunity of that. So more than anything, they would really want to ask us to explore what it means to stand on like the, you know, like on the cliff looking into the abyss, and instead of feeling afraid, instead feel awe, right? Feel the awesomeness, seriously, the awesomeness of the potential of our lives and the opportunity that's opening right now before us in ways that is hard to appreciate because we haven't really, you know, in human consciousness, we haven't done this. It's been 10,000 years minimally since, you know, humanity had this kind of experience. So the more you can feel comfortable with the whole concept of the unknown and the unexpected, in a funny way, the easier it's going to be for you to get through the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. Because what the world will be like 10 years from now be very different than it is right now, and mostly in a good way, or most people anyway would think it's a good way. So, all right. Any other questions? Does anybody else have anything they want to ask? You can type it in chat. These Thursday night YouTube live streams, I'm thinking of keeping them to just about an hour. So we are kind of right at that point at this point. I am going to also add Akashic Record Insights to Sunday afternoons. So it'd be 1 p.m. Eastern time. And so I'm excited about that. Plus, then there's also 2 Fridays a month. So like every other Friday, more or less, I'll be doing them on Zoom. So if you go to my website and look for Akashic Record Insights, you can register for the Zoom calls. It's a little bit different environment. I guess maybe a little more. Well, it just is a little different, but it works both ways. So, okay, so I think we're good for tonight. Let me close the record so we don't all kind of go floating off. In love and light, I thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love, their attention, and their presence. Amen, amen, amen. The records are closed. All right, I want to thank everybody for showing up. I so appreciate it. I really enjoyed doing this. I'm kind of getting used to it. I'm not so nervous about it as I was there for a bit. So I want everybody to have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever it is you are in the world. And I will see you all soon. All right, good night. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.